You might not remember her name, but in the late 90s and early 2000s, Maggie Rizer was everywhere. Vogue covers, Versace campaigns, a rising star in the middle of the biggest modeling boom since the 80s. She had the look everyone wanted: blonde, freckled, and unmistakably American. She didn't come from fashion. She came from a small town in upstate New York. No connections, no model mother, just a senior portrait mailed into an agency. And from there, everything changed. But her story isn't about fame. Not really. It's about what happened after the covers. The part no one in fashion likes to talk about.
There's a lot of things that the fashion industry represents that are unhealthy. As much fun and as lucky as I am that career happened, it's nothing that I'd really, wish on anybody.
Maggie Rizer built a multi-million-dollar modeling career in just a few years. Then, she lost all of it. Not to scandal. Not to burnout. But to someone inside her own home. So how do you go from the cover of Vogue to completely broke? To answer that, we have to start where she did. Far from the runway. Maggie Rizer was born in 1978 in Staten Island, New York, but the place that would define her wasn't the city. It was Watertown, a quiet, upstate town near the Canadian border, the kind of place with field hockey games, mall photo booths, and long winters. "I was just a normal kid," she'd later say. Played sports, obsessed with the Beatles, cut pictures out of magazines. Her parents divorced when she was 2. Her father, Kevin Rizer, had come out as gay. Something Maggie never saw as a flaw, but other kids didn't let her forget it. She and her sister Julia were bullied for it in school. "It was hard," she once admitted. But it's okay, Kevin passed away from AIDS in 1992. Maggie was just 14. The trauma was quiet, long-lasting, but she didn't dwell on it. She focused on moving forward. Her mom, Maureen, remarried an insurance agent named John Breen, a man Maggie would later call her father. Life was simple. She was close with her siblings, went to high school like any other small-town teen. Modeling? Not even on her radar. She planned to go to college, maybe study business, something safe. Until that photo. Her mom mailed Maggie's senior portrait to Ford Models. Maggie thought it was a joke. She even made her mom send the one where she wasn't smiling just to mess with her.
My mom wanted to send all these pictures. She wanted to send my high school picture, and she wanted to send pictures of me smiling and all happy. And then I made her send this one in because, I thought it was a joke anyway that she was sending these pictures in to, for me to be a model, so.
A few days later, Ford called back, and what happened next moved at warp speed. Within a year, Maggie was shooting a 20-page couture spread with Steven Meisel for Vogue Italia. The first time she worked with him, she had paint splattered on her face, porcupine quills in her hair, and burlap wrapped around her body. She had no idea who Meisel even was.
I had no idea what Italian Vogue was. My first job, I had blue paint splattered on my face. I had porcupine quills sticking out of my head, and I was wearing a burlap sack, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
But Meisel knew who she was, and so did the industry. Maggie wasn't just another runway face. She became a favorite of Steven Meisel, appearing repeatedly in Vogue Italia, where her ability to transform made her a muse. Maggie brought something different. A softness that could turn severe, a wide-eyed American optimism paired with editorial weirdness. Her walk was clean, no theatrics, just presence. Designers loved that. You could project anything onto her, and she delivered.
She really absorbs the feeling of each designer's vision.
People don't like just plain dumb beauty anymore. They want something else. They want something that's a little bit more provocative, and she has that.
The freckled girl from Watertown was suddenly walking for Prada, Chanel, Dolce, and Gabbana. Her image was everywhere. Clinique, Calvin Klein, Fendi in Asia. They called her a chameleon. She could do high glamour, girl next door, or blank canvas. Whatever the campaign needed, Maggie gave it.
When I'm working, I try to be professional. I try to have fun, and I try, most importantly, to find out exactly what they're looking for and try to project that.
And she worked, constantly. By the early 2000s, she was making $20,000 per runway show, as many as 80 shows per year, another $30,000 per shoot day. It added up quickly. In just a few years, she amassed more than $7 million. But she wasn't living like a supermodel stereotype. Maggie bought a condo in Tribeca, but also built a cottage on Lake Ontario. She gave her family one of the nicest homes in Watertown. "I wasn't trying to escape Watertown," she once said. "I loved it there." She wasn't a party girl, not reckless. She showed up to work early, smiled, and did what was asked. She was a canvas you could mold, one Ford agent said. But she wasn't fake. She was eager to please, and that's rare. She was living the dream. But underneath it, Maggie was still just that same kid who wore her Doc Martens until the soles gave out and begged her parents for Beatles memorabilia. Her family grounded her. She trusted them with everything, especially John Breen, her stepdad, the man who cheered her on from the sidelines, the man who carried her modeling cards in his wallet, and the man she would one day ask to manage her entire fortune. But we're not there yet. For now, Maggie Rizer was still on top of the world. By 2002, Maggie Rizer had made more than $7 million. One of the top American models of her era, campaign, catwalk, cover, her face was everywhere. But while Maggie smiled from magazine racks, something else was happening behind the scenes, and it didn't happen all at once. It started quietly. Her stepfather, John Breen, began raise concerns. He told her things were tight, that she didn't have enough liquidity, that she should cut back on spending. Maggie didn't get it. She wasn't living extravagantly, but she didn't push back. She trusted him. He'd raised her since she was 2. To her, he was her dad. Years earlier, she'd hired a financial manager in New York, someone with experience. But John wasn't comfortable with that. He said it was a waste. He could do it cheaper, better, and she wouldn't have to pay extra fees. Eventually, she gave in. I remember lying on my bed and crying because I didn't know what to do. Part of me said, "Don't mix family with business." But I also thought, am I wasting money? Should I just let him do it? So she let him handle it. And for a while, things seemed fine. What Maggie didn't know was that John had developed a serious gambling problem. Most days, he sat inside a bar in Watertown called the Speak Easy, pouring money into a game called Quick Draw, a lottery where numbers are drawn every 5 minutes. Addictive. Fast. A local senator once called it video crack. John would buy up to 50 tickets at once. He wrote checks against hidden accounts, ones Maggie didn't even know existed. Some weeks, he burned through more than $60,000. I'd check 6 accounts and find out there were 20 more I didn't even know existed. And all of them had been emptied, Maggie later said. But at the time, she had no clue. She was still traveling, shooting, walking shows, trusting that everything back home was being handled. It was her mother, Maureen, who saw the first warning signs. In January 2003, she called Maggie. John was drinking again, she said, and the financials didn't look right. Maggie didn't believe her, not at first. She thought maybe it was a misunderstanding or her mom overreacting. But just to be sure, she made a few calls. One of her accounts had been closed. Another was empty. Her mutual funds liquidated. She kept checking. Maybe she'd misread the numbers. Maybe there was another account. Maybe this was a glitch. But every statement told the same story. 0. She called the bank, the brokerage firm, the investment manager. They all said the same thing. The money was gone. At home, Maureen started digging. In John's bags of trash, she found gambling slips, forged signatures, and piles of withdrawal receipts. It wasn't one bad bet. It was years of compulsive hidden destruction. Over $7 million had vanished. Every job, every shoot, every check, all of it. Gone. Maggie didn't explode. She didn't hold a press conference. She shut down.
Own it when you're down, like deal with it. My big problems when I have had lows is pretending that I'm fine and being like, I've got this, everything's fine, nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
She stopped working. Her eating changed. Her drinking increased. She gained weight, just enough to fall out of favor with an industry already obsessed with thinness. Maggie didn't care. She wasn't trying to be booked. She felt humiliated. IMG, her agency, offered her therapy, some light commercial gigs, but the spotlight had shifted. The modeling world moved on. Still, she didn't fight back. She didn't file a civil suit. When John was arrested and charged, she gave a statement, but didn't show up to court. He's honestly not a bad guy. He's just really messed up. I want him to understand that life is a gift. Her mom, Maureen, didn't agree. She and Maggie's siblings had to apply for public assistance. She was angry. She couldn't understand the silence, the forgiveness. But Maggie wasn't doing this for closure. She wasn't even sure closure was possible. She was trying to process something most people never have to imagine: betrayal from the person she trusted most. "I used to take people for their word," she once said. "If you're a bad person, you're supposed to look like one. Scraggly, mean, ugly. He didn't." In 2005, John Breen pleaded guilty to grand larceny and conspiracy to defraud. He was sentenced to 16 months to 4 years in state prison. In Watertown, the story made local headlines. Some neighbors were stunned, others less so. Rumors of John's bar tabs and gambling had circulated for years. Breen himself never made a public statement. But Maureen didn't hold back. "He tore this family apart," she reportedly told a local reporter. "We're the ones left to live with the damage." The fallout lingered long after his prison term ended. Maggie never expected the money back. But what she needed now wasn't in a spreadsheet. She had to figure out who she was without it. And maybe what it meant to keep going when everything you'd built was taken by someone who was supposed to protect it. After everything that happened, Maggie Rizer didn't chase a tabloid comeback. No public meltdown. No tearful morning show interview. She didn't rebrand herself with a perfume line or a podcast. For a while, she simply disappeared. But it wasn't out of shame. It was a choice, deliberate, quiet. A decision to start over without asking for attention. In the years that followed, Maggie didn't chase the camera. She turned toward something that mattered more to her: advocacy. And it wasn't branding. It was personal. Her biological father, Kevin Rizer, had died of AIDS-related complications when she was just 14. She'd known about his diagnosis since she was little. That knowledge shaped her, not in a dramatic way, but in the slow, invisible kind. The kind that makes you question where you belong and what kind of impact you want to leave. "From the time I was really little, I knew that he had HIV, and I kind of grew up waiting for my dad to die," she once said. When she returned to the public eye, it wasn't on a runway. It was at a fundraiser. Through her work with AMFAR, the Foundation for AIDS Research, Maggie became a committed voice in HIV awareness and treatment advocacy. She co-chaired galas, gave speeches, raised money, and lent her name to something that felt urgent. If I can help one young girl avoid losing her father at such a young age, that's the best thing I can do. She showed up, not for cameras, but for causes, in Cannes, at fashion events, at quiet dinners where research funding was decided. And slowly, the girl once known for her face became known for her voice, one shaped by loss, but used with purpose.
Having this voice, I can impact other people, and I can help teach other people and help other people become aware. It makes me feel like a personal success.
But success, for Maggie, wasn't just about public causes. It was also private work, personal recovery, emotional repair. In the years after the theft, she didn't just lose her money. She lost her confidence, her bearings, her ability to trust even basic instincts. She once admitted that for a long time she couldn't even log into a bank account without anxiety. Bills made her panic. The idea of signing another contract, even for something simple, brought up flashbacks of what she'd missed, what she should have caught. Even years later, she carried a quiet shame. Not that she was robbed, but that she let it happen. Behind the scenes, Maggie did the unglamorous work of healing. She started therapy. She focused on routine. She spent more time with animals, adopting dogs, supporting shelters, volunteering at her local SPCA. It wasn't performative. It was grounding. Friends described her as someone resetting from zero, not chasing what she'd lost, but slowly learning to feel stable again. And while most of the world moved on from the headlines, Maggie was still sorting through what it meant to build a future when your foundation was pulled out from under you. Her return to fashion was cautious. She made her own decisions, asked more questions, trusted her gut. If something didn't feel right, she walked away. She didn't need a grand reinvention. She needed to know she could survive. And she did. And maybe that was the real shift. She didn't use the runway to make a statement. She used her absence. And maybe that silence said more than a press tour ever could. She did model again, briefly. In 2008, she appeared in Vogue in a few campaigns. The media called it a comeback, but Maggie didn't. To her, it was just a job, a moment, not a return to who she used to be, because she wasn't that girl anymore. In her personal life, everything changed. In 2010, she married environmentalist Alex Moran. They had 4 children, and in 2020, the family made a bold choice. They packed up, set sail across the South Pacific, and homeschooled their kids from a boat. No stylists, no red carpets, just the sea. In an interview during that time, Maggie looked completely at ease. Kids laughing in the background, ocean behind her, the glow of someone who found a different kind of success. "It was kind of a distant plan for us to take a year off and sail," she said. "But with everything going on in the world, we just decided to do it. And we're having a really great time." Maggie talks openly now about how different her priorities are. Modeling? Even at its peak, she doesn't romanticize it. She's spoken plainly about the pressure to be dangerously thin, about the way fashion trains young women to shrink themselves, literally and metaphorically. She's spoken about that openly, and says it's not a world she'd ever want her daughter to grow up in. No matter how much success it brought, it came at a cost. These days, she still models from time to time, mostly for friends or small brands. She still shows up here and there, but she doesn't chase relevance. She's not trying to recapture anything.
My heart really is and always has been in Northern New York, and it just holds a very special place for me. To be inducted into the Hall of Fame there is it really is such an honor.
After everything, the rise, the loss, the rebuilding, that's what mattered most. Not the runway, not the comeback. Just being seen for who she really was, in the place that made her. When someone asks her about her comeback, she laughs. "Everyone loves a comeback story, right?" she said. But for me, it wasn't about proving anything. It was just about finding stability again, and holding on to what really matters. And maybe that's what makes her story so different. She didn't crash. She didn't spiral. She didn't rebrand herself for attention. She stepped away. She built a different life, one that had nothing to prove. Not because everything was fine, but because she stopped pretending it was. "Tomorrow is a new day," she tells at her kids now. "And you have the power to choose how that day turns out." That's not the kind of wisdom you learn on a runway. It's the kind that comes after everything falls apart, and you choose to keep showing up anyway. There's no revenge arc here, no big comeback tour, just a woman who went through something unthinkable and figured out how to rebuild her life in a way that made sense to her. She didn't get her money back, but she found other things. Her voice, her family, a way to live that felt like hers, and in the end, that might have been the real win.